Thank you. I'm going to bring in Ash Regan. If we've got time, I'll come back to you, Lawrence, later. Ash Regan.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning. The committee are very interested in the ideas around accountability and scrutiny and whether you think that that is robust. Obviously, your organisation was set up by Parliament to uphold human rights and to make sure that policy meets human rights requirements. You'll have seen that last week the EHRC intervened in the wake of the Sandie Peggie NHS Fife case. But I note we've not heard from you on that case. We haven't heard from you on single-sex spaces. We haven't heard from you on toilets in schools. We haven't heard from you on intimate searches policy of the British Transport Police, Police Scotland's policies on sex and gender. We haven't heard from you across a range of those things at all. I would argue that women's human rights are very much affected by those issues. And so my question to you would be, how then are you accountable to Parliament and also to the people of Scotland if you are failing to uphold the standards that provide the very reason for your existence?
Just before we proceed, if witnesses and colleagues can just be careful of sub judice, answer that as you wish, and then we'll move on to. I'm not challenging
case. It's about the wider issues.
And I'm not challenging that the importance of your questions, Ash Regan, or the way you've asked them. I just, for context, wanted to make those points. So thank you, Ash Regan, and sure. over to you, Professor O'Hagan.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, I mean, I won't comment specifically on the employment tribunal that's live just now. I will comment on the wider set of issues that Ms Regan has raised. We are not the regulator of the Equality Act, and that was the basis of the EHRC re-clarification of its own guidance on single-sex spaces and the protection of single-sex spaces. That is the law, and as I am on record at committee elsewhere recently, of course we uphold and seek to protect the law as is, and that's the way in which we function. We share a concern as a Commission to ensure the effective protection of rights in law for dignity and respect for everyone.
If you can forgive me just for a moment, I've set out where there's a number of issues. You know, there's many people across Scotland who genuinely feel that women's human rights are under attack right now across a number of those issues, and more than the ones I've set out here. And yet, this is a genuine question. I feel I'm not hearing from the Commission on these issues, either side, one way or another. We're not hearing from you, not making those interventions. Would you agree? Would you agree with me on that?
We're not making those interventions when they are a matter of the Equality Act, because we're not the regulator of the Equality Act, and that's not within our remit. That's within the remit of the Equality and Human Rights Commission.
But obviously CEDAW is within your remit.
CEDAW is indeed within our remit.
The Istanbul Convention is within your remit.
Yeah. And as I was going on to say, there are a number of human rights treaties and instruments which the UK has ratified, and which we discuss regularly at Commission. And as a pluralist Commission, we have a range of views which are raised and discussed within Commission. And we work through the range of relevant human rights instruments which provide instruction on the protection of rights for all, and take a range of existing legal frameworks into account. As the previous conversation about reactive and proactive pointed to, we've not been directly engaged by rights holders or public bodies in these questions, and therefore have not, beyond providing advice to the legislative process, which predates my time as chair. We haven't been engaged in these processes recently. Where we do ensure that the rights of women are surfaced and foregrounded is across our treaty monitoring, across the treaties, and we've been engaged in the treaty reporting cycle recently, and we will shortly be, within the next 12 months, the CEDAW process will be kicking in, and so we will be reporting on the status of rights of women in Scotland through the CEDAW process.
In terms of upholding women's rights across Scotland, then, would you say that you agree with John Swinney that trans women are women for the points of policy that I've been discussing here, or with Reem Al Salem that sex means sex when it comes to single-sex spaces?
I'm conscious that we're straying into the remit of the Equalities Committee. I will allow you to answer that as you wish. And then I would be grateful if we can move on to the questions relating to this committee. Perhaps also, Professor Regan, if you wish, you could give an undertaking to engage in British correspondence with us, Regan, and with the Equalities Committee as is helpful or appropriate.
I think that's a very helpful intervention there, Convener. I'm very happy to pick up these issues in writing with this committee, with Ms Regan individually, and indeed with the Equalities Committee. The question Ms Regan has asked is also before the Supreme Court at the moment in terms of definitions of women, and the Commission is very alert to waiting for that decision and the implications that may have for law and policy and duty bearers and the realisation of rights for women in Scotland. So we are very engaged in this matter. We have, in my tenure over the last 6 months at the Commission, engaged in regular discussion on this. We have an alert watching brief, as I say, on the Supreme Court, and alert to the extent to which case law is instructive in how international human rights standards are interpreted, and we can continue. We can provide further detail on that to this committee, to Ms Regan and anybody else who wishes. Our Commission minutes are in the public domain, and that includes a series of special Commission meetings in relation to the progression of the Supreme Court case, and we operate under a process of collective responsibility, as you would expect, through our governance structures, which was the initial point of Ms Regan's question, which was about accountability and scrutiny. As we've set out in our written submission, we have multiple layers of governance and accountability measures internally, as well as to Parliament, as well as to the international frameworks that I've mentioned earlier on, and ultimately to the people of Scotland.